Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little bit since Mando season 2 has ended, so hopefully everybody's seen it. And if you just want to get like a little recap, or maybe you're watching this in the future before season 3 comes out, then I got you with the recap and some of my thoughts right here. Now, it is 8 episodes of stuff, but I will try to read it to the best of my ability and get through it. Alright, so starting off with chapter 9, The Marshal. Mando goes out to return the child. He is told other Mandalorian may be able to help, hence his search begins for the Mandalorians. He goes to the Tatooine town Mos Pelgo, and since there is a rumor of Mando there, turns out it's just the sheriff who is a Cobb Vanth? Yes? Who is wearing Mandalorian armor, specifically Boba Fett's. So he agrees to give him the armor in exchange for help killing this dragon-like creature, which name I'm not even going to try and pronounce. So kills the dragon, gets the armor, keeps moving. I thought this was a good opening to season 2. I enjoyed it. It was cool to see Tatooine once again, just see it throughout the different periods and stuff, since Luke never really goes back to it all that much. And also really liked that he was able to work with, that Mando was able to work with the Tusken Raiders in this episode. We don't really get to see the Tusken Raiders that much, and I just think the name is funny. Like, I think if people from the South became aliens, that would be one of the names they would adopt. Like, we're the Tusken Raiders, y'all. That sounds, I think it sounds pretty legit. So it always makes me laugh. I also like that he was able to like pull the town together for this job instead of like doing things by himself. He usually has like Cara Dune and Griff to help him out, but it was cool seeing like him kind of pull together different resources and things to get this job done. So moving on, chapter 10, The Passenger. Mando gets some intel as to where Mandalorian has been sighted and agrees to carpool with this frog lady and her eggs to the estuary moon Trask, where her husband is waiting. So due to the eggs' fragility, they have to travel at sublight speeds, and since Mando has a warrant on his head, he is approached by a couple X-Wing pilots from the like new forming republic. I'm not 100% sure. So the Mando jets off, gets Razor Crest stuck on this like ice planet inside of this cave. So while they're in there, the carnivorous Baby Yoda eats at least 60% of this woman's eggs. And the craziest part of this whole episode is she does not seem to notice whatsoever. So just as I'm beginning to think that Mando does not feed this poor child, he goes out, hungry Yoda goes out and just starts eating this random sack off the ground, which turns out is another egg, but a spider egg. So cracking that egg caused all these other little sacks in the ground to crack, and then big giant mama spider comes out to say hello. So of course, giant spider tries to kill them all, and just when you think the end has come for Mandalorian, the 2 X-Wing pilots that they ran into earlier help them out, kill the giant spider, and they let Mando go since he's been turning in other baddies. So they're like, yeah, you know, you've done some good, we'll cut you some slack. So the thing that made this episode the most exciting for me was definitely the spiders, because I have a fear of spiders, so I was very anxious the whole time watching. I also started to dislike Baby Yoda for eating all those freaking eggs, even after Mando told him not to. You know, he is like 50 years old, even though it's like child for that race. That's still like, you know, someone tells you, hey, like, don't do this, and they're talking about eggs and all that crap. Like, I feel like he could have known, like, this is bad, even though it tastes really good, this is bad. So, I don't know. That was just reminding me of, like, the shenanigans and stuff that he gets into. So, it put a damper on his character for me, for sure. This is what happens when you don't discipline your kids, folks. But, my last point on this was like, how did that lady not notice that most of her eggs were missing? Like, I don't know if she just didn't care, like, you know what, 10 eggs, good enough for me. Or if she just, like, legitimately did not notice at all. That didn't make any sense. I feel like they should have pointed something out there. But moving on to chapter 11, The Heiress. At Trask, the frog lady reunites with her husband, and Mando goes out to find other Mandalorians. He talks to his fisherman, who's like, hey, I know where some Mandalorian are. So of course he gets on his boat, and it's a trap. So just as things were starting to get a little spicy, oh, by the way, he invited him on his boat because he wanted to get them armor off of him because it's pretty valuable. Happens a lot in this season. But just as things are starting to get a little spicy, 3 warriors wearing Mandalorian armor fly in to save the day. So the leader, Bo-Katan, convinces Mando to help her seize weapons from an Imperial freighter. Once they get the ship, she pulls a gotcha. I actually want the whole ship. So she ends up trying to interrogate this pilot for information on the Dark Saber. That doesn't end up working out. Moff Gideon calls the pilot up. He's like, hey, crash the freighter, like we don't want them getting anything, and that doesn't work out either, so she ends up keeping the freighter. Episode ends with Bo-Katan telling Mando about the Jedi that are on planet Corvus, so he ends up flying away after repairs are done to the Razor Crest. So my favorite part about this episode has to be the Mandalorians flying in, kind of like, I wouldn't say callback to season 1 just because it's like a different group, but still it's like cool kind of epic moment of like, there's more of us out there and we're here to help you out. I also thought it added an interesting element to the Mandalorian lore, which is the Dark Saber, which is just a cool item in general that I didn't know anything about in season 1, so adding a little bit more information to that. So moving on to chapter 12, The Seas. Since Mando's ship is made out of 90% duct tape, he has to make another stop for repairs, so he makes a detour to Navarro, where he is reunited with Cara Dune and Griff Karga, and they talk about how much better things are since Griff has become the magistrate of the area and Cara's become the marshal, but that could use help with a little problem. There is a small, tiny Imperial base on the planet where the good Dr. Pershing is hanging out and they want to go blow it up. So they do just that. Mando bounces with his newly repaired Razor Crest that has a new feature. Oh, and Baby Yoda puked, which was cute and disgusting. So for me, thinking back to this episode, I was kind of at the point where I started to think like Mando was kind of like the galaxy's errand boy. Like it seemed like he was doing a lot of tasks for like not a lot in return. Not saying you should do that, but for purposes of like us watching him go through this journey, like it didn't seem like he was getting a whole lot out of doing these favors. Like I get it for your friends, but for random people, like other than that, nothing too memorable for me in this episode other than Cara Dune driving the tank and Baby Yoda puking. So yeah, on to the next. So, in Chapter 13, The Jedi, Mando finally makes it to the city of Caladan on Corvus to find that things were not doing so well. The city's magistrate, Morgan Esbeth, and her hired merc, Lang, were running a kind of dictatorship there. So Mando meets Esbeth, who tells him to go find a Jedi that's hanging out in the woods outside of her city. And in exchange, she's going to give him a pure Beskar steel spear. So Mando kind of looks at her like, okay. He goes into the woods and falls into a Jedi trap, and who is, lo and behold, Ahsoka Tano. So here they have a little battle, but Ahsoka stops when she sees Baby Yoda. So after having a romantic moonlit date, Ahsoka finds out that Baby Yoda's real name is Grogu, so Ahsoka explains Grogu's journey with the Force during the fall of the Republic. She tells Mando that she won't train him due to the fear and anger that he has inside of him, so Mando tries to cut a deal with her and says that he'll help her get rid of Esbeth to restore the town to like a better state as she trains Grogu. So together they storm the city, defeat Esbeth, and free the citizens. Just as Mando is getting ready to leave with Ahsoka, she says, gotcha, I'm not coming. But you might be able to connect with a Jedi in the Jedi Temple on Tython, so that's where Mando goes next. This is my favorite episode of the season, and it might be just my favorite episode in general of The Mandalorian. I am not like a super huge Ahsoka Tano fan, but it was really exciting to see like finally a Jedi in the show for one thing. And Ahsoka Tano is an interesting character in general, so it's cool to see her on the screen in live action too. So this episode has lightsaber fights, Jedi shootouts. It's basically nailing the whole like space western idea that the directors were going for, which is really awesome. I do have to note that I was a little sad that this was Ahsoka's only episode in the series, but considering she's going to be getting her own series, it kind of makes up for it a little bit. So moving on to Chapter 14, The Tragedy, Mando takes Grogu to the Jedi Temple on Tython and places him on the Seeing Stone. When Grogu begins meditating, a force field appears around him. So while that's happening, a man with scars on his face, and Fennec Shand, The mercenary, who, surprise, is not dead, goes to talk to Mando. Turns out the dude is actually Boba Fett, who came looking for his armor. So just as they get to talking, the new feature of the Razor Crest goes to work. It brings you a Stormtrooper-themed birthday party featuring Moff Gideon. Too bad it wasn't anybody's birthday, so shots were fired. Mando agrees to give Boba Fett the armor if he helps protect Grogu. So once Grogu gets done trying to call the remaining Jedi, he passes out and his force field goes down. So Moff Gideon takes this opportunity to send some dark troopers and they snatch Grogu up. So since Mando returned the armor, Boba Fett decided to hold up his end of the bargain by helping take Mando to Navarro to get Cara Dune's help to break Migs Mayfield out of prison, since Mando's ship, the Razor Crest, does end up blowing up. So I feel like the thing that made this episode for me was honestly Boba Fett and Fennec Shan's appearances. Stormtrooper fights are always like kind of for me. Like, it's cool to see the Stormtroopers, but you know they're rarely ever going to hit anything, so I can't get too excited about that, I'm not going to lie. But Shan had some pretty badass moments in there, so that definitely made up for a lot of the misses that the Stormtroopers were doing. So moving on to Chapter 15, The Believer. Dune was able to get Mayfield out with her new status as a marshal. Mayfield tells them about an Imperial mining hub on Morak, and that might have Moff Gideon's coordinates. There, Mayfield and Mando, dressed as troopers, hijack a transport of Rhydonium, which is highly explosive, and were attacked by the worst pirates ever. They kept trying to blow up the transport instead of steal it for some reason. So anyway, they get inside the Imperial base where Mando begrudgingly takes off his helmet to do a retinal scan for Moff Gideon's coordinates. Then Mayfield gets in a fight with his old commanding officer because he is a jerk, and they escape the base while blowing it up. So at the end, Dune lets Mayfield go to do whatever, I don't know, whatever there is to do on that planet. And Mando sends Moff Gideon a message saying, "You better get ready for this butt woman, because I'm coming." I really enjoyed the battle sequences that happened with the pirates on the transport in this episode. I feel like it's a very exciting and different style of combat than what we're used to seeing in The Mandalorian, and it kind of reminded me more of some Indiana Jones type fights. So that was really cool to see. I also like how Mando is kind of pressured to take his helmet off because it kind of puts his character off balance, which we don't really get to see a whole lot in the series. And yeah, that was just interesting to see a different side of Mando. So all these events lead us into the final chapter of the season, Chapter 16, The Rescue. So Mando and Cara Dune board an Imperial shuttle and capture Dr. Pershing, which is a quick sequence. Then they go to get help from Bo-Katan and her friend Reeves in exchange for the Dark Saber and Gideon's cruiser. They create a plan for Boba Fett to act as a distraction while Mando and the rest of the crew dock on Gideon's ship using the Imperial freighter that they got from an earlier episode. When Bo-Katan, Dune, Shan, and Reeves jump out to make a distraction, Mando hops out on his own and tries to eject the Dark Troopers, who, as we saw earlier, are just going to be really difficult to fight and will slow them down. But Mando ends up fighting one of them that escapes from the containment unit. And just as he's barely able to defeat him, Moff Gideon turns the corner and tries to fight Mando and ends up losing, surprisingly. So Mando takes Moff Gideon in cuffs and goes to the bridge with the Dark Saber in hand. And that really upsets Bo-Katan. So while she's contemplating killing Mando, the Dark Troopers fly back into the ship and try to break down the door to the bridge. And that's when a Jedi appears. So he cuts down the Dark Troopers, busts into the room, and that's when we see the weirdest looking CGI Luke I've ever seen. It was still a cool moment though. You know who it's supposed to be. So then Mando has to say goodbye to Grogu as he goes off to train with Luke, taking his helmet off one more time. Now what's interesting to me is if you think back to what happened to Luke's Jedi Academy in the last Star Wars movie, the chances of Grogu being alive in the Star Wars universe is not super high, which is sad. So hopefully, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they would do with that, but that is sad to think. Overall, I did like the season 2 finale, although I wish they would have ended it off with a really good Moff Gideon versus Mando fight. I feel like the fight ended a little bit too quickly and too easily. I'm not sure if it was like kind of like Moff Gideon was trying to do mind tricks because he knew Bo-Katan wanted the Dark Saber so she could like reclaim Mandalorian royalty, or I don't really know if that's was what his intention was, or if that's kind of something he improvised on the spot. But it was a little bit disappointing to see like this supposed like Sith Lord get defeated that easily. I also was a little bit interested to see what would happen if a fight broke out between Mando and Bo-Katan, since, you know, she has to win the Dark Saber in order to be his rightful owner. So that would have been something interesting to see that I definitely think, since it didn't happen in this season, they'll throw it into season 3. So the season ends with a sneak peek to the new Boba Fett show that's going to be coming out in December of 2021, which is quite a ways away. Mandalorian season 3 is supposed to come out a little bit before that, I believe. The dates are not out there, at least not while I'm discussing this. So, yeah, we're gonna have to wait a little bit to get more Mando related content. But what was interesting about the sneak peek is Boba Fett goes back to Mos Eisley and takes Jabba's throne with Shand at his side, which is like, I don't know what his intentions are, so I'm curious to see what's going to be happening with that. But overall, I did enjoy the season, although I think I liked the first season of Mandalorian a little bit more, just because it didn't feel like Mando was fully behind the wheel on this story, which is fine, but in this case, I feel like he was kind of doing, like, I wouldn't say small errands, but errands for other people, and not really developing his story or developing his relationship between himself and Grogu, other than like learning his name and a little bit about his backstory. So I would have liked to see like Mando kind of take charge a little bit more. But yeah, other than that, good season, good show. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Mando Season 2, as well as the recap. So hopefully that was helpful to some people who don't want to like watch all the episodes again and just want a short little thing to help get them caught up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Season 3 whenever that comes out. I don't really know where they're going to go from here, since Mando's whole goal, basically from the very early on in Season 1, has been to find Grogu's home and get him back to where he needs to be. So I'm curious to see what he's going to be doing next. But yeah, if you guys like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. Helps me out, get me recommended to other people like you. And if you really like this video and you like some of my other content, then you can subscribe to this channel and join the community. Always looking for new people, new faces to talk to, and just nerd out about all this other stuff. So I hope everybody has a happy new year, and I hope you have a nice evening, morning, or night, whatever's enjoy it. And I'll see ya in the next video. Peace!